Hey guys, let's try this again. I don't know what happened there. But first of all, before we start this video, I'd like to ask you to do me a small favor. That's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, guys, you can support me outside of YouTube if you'd like to. I have a podcast. I don't know why I got my brain froze there for a second, but I do have a podcast. You can find me at all your favorite podcast affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify, Radio Public, and to an extent SiriusXM. You can also find me at other video platforms like Rumble.com, Odyssey.com, DailyMotion.com, and VENMO. I do have a Patreon. The Patreon is going to be probably going into active action, if you will, later this week, mainly due to the fact that it's Thanksgiving weekend, and as I've alluded to in the channel update, tomorrow is going to be one of those days to where you got to work around certain situations. Also, I have a Venmo, I have a Venmo and a Cash App if you want to help there. And also, guys, you can find me at deviantart.com at BVW1979 and inkbunny.net at BWRoses. I have a Fourth Wall store, link is at the top of that in the description, and a Teespring store, links are at the bottom for that in the description as well. Also, you can follow me on social media at Blue Sky, Twitter, aka X, if you will, and TikTok. I'll be posting some videos, very short videos there on TikTok as well that you'll see here on YouTube. Also, guys, you can support me through the live chat if you would like during this video premiere and everything. You can help me out. You can give your thoughts through that. And excuse me for a second, I knew that was going to... Sorry about that. But like I said, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And as I acknowledged, you can find me on all those platforms. And then, like I said, you could follow me on social media at Twitter, Blue Sky, and at TikTok. I will be posting videos on there as well. And also, guys, you can follow me in the live chat, or follow what I talk about here in the live chat, give your thoughts on it, as well as also donate with the Super Chats if you would like to do that. And also, guys, comments will be open on both occasions, video premiere and afterwards. And if you still want to donate after the video premiere, if you're not here in time for the video premiere, you can do so with the super thanks option, which is a little heart and the dollar sign in the middle. Also, again, guys, before I start, I have a Teespring store, link is at the bottom for that in the description, and a Fourth Wall store, link is at the top for that. And as I said, you can find me at deviantart.com, at BVW1979, inkbunny.net, at BWRoses, and you can click on the links in the description to find me at all your favorite audio and video podcast platforms like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify, Radio Public, Internet Extend SiriusXM, and video outlets outside of YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, DailyMotion, and VENMO. And hopefully that covers everything. So let's get into the topic at hand here, shall we? Okay, guys. So, a lot of people like myself have been talking about Zootopia 2, and mostly how very heavily it's implying a Nick and Judy relationship that's beyond the buddy cop partnership friendship that they have, especially when you look at the post-credit scene and all that, and just how in a way very allegory like they're just blatantly showing you that these two are going to be together, or basically building to that opportunity. But obviously the question is, why are they doing this? Like, why are they taking their time with building up to that moment that obviously a lot of people want to see? And people have been playing out since the beginning. I mean, it's been almost like a decade next year since the first movie came out. And, a lot of people even then were pairing these two up, because to them, even then, it was obvious in that movie that there was something there. And you were putting those little hints there, like, Judy putting her paw over Nick's, when they're on that thing. I can't think of the name of it right now. That sky ride or whatever it was. It's like, again, all the hints and stuff were there even in the first film, and now people are looking at more so of how it's blatantly seen and obvious here in the second film. Based on the fact that Nick is telling Paulbert that Judy is worth dying for, and then Judy basically when they embrace, just coming out and finally letting her emotions out. Same with Nick and stuff. And the fact that Judy wants to keep the recording of him saying he loves her, partner and all that. It's like, again, just too much blatant evidence in the eyes of a lot of folks that Disney is basically not only listening and hearing what the fans are saying, but they're also kind of like letting you know, yeah, we're going to make this happen, but we're going to take our time. We're processing, every step of the way of how we do this. We're processing all the, ins and outs, if you will. All the ins and outs of how this is going to work, and everything. So it's, when you really think about it, it's actually a very interesting scenario that going with, an interesting scenario, and I guess you could say very interesting plan, blueprint that they're following to get to that moment, and everything. But the obvious question I think everybody's having is why are they so reluctant and all that to go to that next level and everything when it comes to this film, when it comes to this movie franchise. And here's the thing, I don't think they're reluctant. Again, I think it's just a process they want to get through. And to me, it's more along the lines of, it's something that it's not new. It's something not new that they're going with, because we've seen it before. We've seen it in a lot of movie franchises that have had numerous sequels, if you will. And we've seen it in numerous shows, animated and live action. We've seen all these moments get built up over time and everything, all right? We see all these moments. Friends is a good example with that one relationship, if you will. And the fact that it, took Ross and Rachel, whatever the names, whoever it was, at least until the final season, to acknowledge that the reason they were kind of going back and forth, like they started out strong, they broke up, but the thing is they never stopped loving each other, and all one of them wanted to hear out of the other was those 3 words, and that other half to basically, kind of like, I guess, accept the idea like, okay, it is all right to move on and grow out of this and, take that next step, and stuff like that. So we've seen this process done timelessly, over time, throughout all kinds of, feature films and television. We've seen it. And, it's nothing new. So for people to wonder why they're, reluctant to do it here with Zootopia, why they're playing it safe, they're basically not. What they're doing is they're taking their time. They're building to that moment. They're building to that moment to where basically they want to get these two together, but they want to make it to where basically, the story is at a point. The story is at a point, no matter how many movies or spin-offs it's going to be, spin-off series that is, that are on Disney Plus. But, they want to make sure they get to a decent point in the overall story so that they can say, finally, all right, this is the moment, here we go. And that's why I feel, and I'm sure a lot of people feel, the third film is where it's all going to come to be. It's all going to just come out and, pretty much be, put it into a scenario, if you will, a scenario that, works. And as I alluded to in the last audio video, I feel that what we're going to get is not only birds being brought into society, but we're going to have Nick and Judy interact with some of these birds, and those birds, in my opinion, are going to be lovebirds. And just like with Gary the Snake in the second film, from what people that have seen it have said, Gary the Snake has this this ability to sense the warmth of other animals and use that to warm himself and by extension the other animals. To me, I think they're going to carry that on into the next film with the birds, especially, let's say, lovebirds that Judy and Nick would, interact with. To me, that pretty much would seal the deal, because you could use those lovebirds, whether they're going to be twist villains or not. I don't think they would be, but you can use those lovebirds, if not one, if there's like 2, like one with Nick, one with Judy, or just one period. You can use the lovebird or lovebirds to kind of sense and indicate that Nick and Judy truly care about each other beyond just being, partners, beyond being BFFs, that they, care about each other on a romantic level. They care about each other on a romantic level. And you could have other characters play into that confirmation, by basically telling them outright, yeah, we see it ourselves as well, so why not just say it? why not just come out and tell each other that, you truly love each other beyond being partners? Why not just come out and say it? I mean, I could see Gazelle, Shakira's character, coming back for the third film, and, her talking with Judy and them maybe being BFFs, her talking with Judy and basically saying that, she sees it. That, even though she's a pop icon and all this, she could still see the goodness in people, but she could also see things that people don't want to admit to or confirm. And she can probably even say, yeah, but this Lovebird friend is telling you, it's true. You are in love with, you do care truly deeply about Nick beyond friendship, beyond partnership. And, you can pretty much have Gazelle tell her, yeah, in my opinion, I think you do love him, more so than you want to give credit for. And then you could have someone like, let's say, Flash in his own sloth, yes, and no problem, whatever kind of tone. You could even have him acknowledge to Nick that he sees it. Like, I see you love Judy more than just as a partner and best friend. You love her because you are in love with her. Like, I could see him, and I could see someone like Flash doing that. So you could have characters, beyond, not beyond, but you could have supporting characters go beyond the normal, routines, the normal roles, like you did with Gazelle here in the second film, and you could have them play into confirming that. But again, what this really is a step-by-step process. When you get down to it, it's more like, let's take this step, let's take that step, and let's go from there with it and see what happens. You can't just rush into it. You can't just rush into it and all that. And, again, when you look at the hints, like at the end of the first film and then the second film here, where, Nick's telling Judy jokingly or friendly, like, when they're in the cop car in the first chase, which is against Flash, which is chasing Flash and all that because he's speeding. For him to look at her and go like, you love me. And then Judy like, do I know that? And then her looking at him going like, yes I do. But she's not out flat saying she loves him yet. And then for him to say, I love you, partner, in the second film, it's, and her playing it over and over in the post-credits, which will lead into the third film, or hinting at a third film, basically, like I said, it's that building block. It's that necessary building block to essentially say, what I'm trying to say here, essentially say that when we get to that third film, or however they're going to continue it, that's going to be when we get, the confirmation. And it's not just going to be through the Lovebirds that'll have this ability to sense an attraction between not just their species, but other species as well, like Nick and Judy, but it'll be through the confirmations of characters like Gazelle, like Flash, and several others. And it's going to take that one, and it's going to take that one moment in the film to where basically when they finally get together and admit how they truly care, and we get that first kiss, I guarantee you, first of all, the audience is going to go crazy. They're going to go bananas for it. They're going to go crazy. They're going to go bananas for it. And, that's about it. That's about it. So, to me, what this, so to me, how we're going to get there is all a step-by-step process. It's all a step-by-step process because, like I said, the moment it happens, the audience, erupts in the theater, that's it. That's it. Pretty much, Disney is going to be coming out in this moment and acknowledging, hey, we hear you, we acknowledge you, we get you and everything, and here's your reward for waiting for so long, and it's going to be them getting together. And again, how they built to this moment from the second film in the third film is going to be interesting to see. If they do a Zootopia 2 or Zootopia Plus Season 2, they do that. And this time around, it does focus not just some stories on the supporting characters, but also maybe a story or so on Nick and Judy. You could have that story, individual stories for them or together, kind of tease more of that romantic tension, if you will. Because Pretty much, you had Judy nearly die in this film for Nick to realize he cares about him more than he wants to admit. And that's gonna, and her at that life and death situation, or near death situation, is like basically the step he needs. And who's to say, maybe he's not already thinking about that, and we get hints in the third film that he's got something he wants to ask Judy. Remember, when we saw the Rescuers Down Under, yeah, it took about what was it, like 13 years? 13 years from the first film for the sequel to happen. When we saw that, nobody expected in the first film, despite watching it year after year after year after year, on home video, television, Disney Channel, you name it, or re-releases in theaters, nobody would expect Bernard to ask Miss Bianca, to marry him. Nobody expected that, to happen in the second film, but yet here it was. So who's to say they won't do that with Nick, that Nick won't do the same thing? Like now he's realizing, I don't want to lose her anymore. I'm going to propose to her. Who's to say that won't play, that won't be something that they'll play into the story. And again, you could have the Lovebirds sense and, detect that romantic attraction between the two, and maybe have one of the Lovebirds, if not the Lovebird, because again, birds are going to be incorporated into the next movie or next story. Have that Lovebird basically not only acknowledge to Nick that he knows Nick cares about Judy, beyond just being, beyond just being a partner and all that, but you could have this Lovebird, acknowledge to Nick that he also could sense that Nick is ready to pop that question. And that, he could basically even point out that Nick has, that ring, on his person, but he's just waiting for the right time to, to pop the question and everything. So that could be played into the story as well, especially based on what happened here. And him saying he's been wanting a pack. I mean, come on. What better way to have a pack than to have, the mother of that pack, that wife of that pack, that queen of that pack at your side forevermore. Just saying. And the way they are building, Zootopia up, the way they're building it up, it makes sense to take it to that next level. It makes sense to take it to that next level and make that happen. And again, you don't have to, and again, here, you don't have to have, I'm trying to find the right words to say. That's why that's why I sound the way I do sometimes when trying to come up with something. But here, you don't have to actually have Nick getting ready to pop the question, and all that, or hint that he's going to do it, or find a moment throughout the film to do it. You could just, leave it to where, okay, confirmation, they're in love, it becomes official, there you go. And maybe if you want to have a twist surprise at the end, you could have Nick basically say, oh, one more thing, pull out the box, get down on his knees in front of all the animals in the after party, and then boom, do that. Propose to her right then and there. I mean, it would not only bookend a trilogy, if a trilogy is what we're getting, just, because there are other animals out there outside of birds, but again, if a trilogy is what we're getting, that's one way to bookend it, by surprising everybody at the end with him doing something you wouldn't expect. Because, at the beginning, because throughout the Rescuers Down Under, we knew Bernard wanted to do that, was wanting to pop that question, but he never got a chance until the end of the film. But yet here, you could do the same with Nick, but you could also save that as a surprise. Like, okay, nobody's going to see it coming, and yet when it happens, I'll tell you one thing, it happens, and hold on for a sec. Sorry about that, but like I said, you can even save that surprise to the end of the film, for it to happen. And it would work. It actually would work and everything. And again, the audience, I can tell you right now, would pop for that. Whether they knew it was coming or they wouldn't know it was coming, they would pop. They would pop either way. If they knew he was trying throughout the film to basically get ready to pop that question, the excitement would be, would be unbelievable. It would be unbelievable and everything. But if they didn't see it coming, like, okay, we know they're going to fall in love. We know the Lovebirds are going to sense it. Other characters are going to confirm it, and everything to their own admission, to actually see it occur. To actually see it occur, I should say, at the end as a surprise. Like, okay, you didn't see it coming. And maybe at the same time in story, you could have the other characters be like, whoa, like Gazelle, you could probably, make it to where she had a feeling, but she wasn't sure, but she'd be a little surprised. Same with the other characters. Be like, whoa, didn't expect this. But have it happen? I mean, just the fact that, that would, to me, be a great way to bookend what potentially is a trilogy for this franchise. Would be great to see. It would be. It would be great to see. So, to me, it's not just, something, along the lines of, it's not just something that, along the lines that they would need to necessarily do, because obviously they would be adding too much to the equation. They'd be adding too much to it. But to me, it's definitely something to, look into. It's definitely something to strongly, consider for the for the future. Let's say if they want to go beyond 3 movies, like let's say they want to do a series for Disney Plus and Disney Channel, or they want to do a 4th film. You could have the romance be made official in the 3rd film, and then the 4th film, depending on how that's going to be done, what animals you bring into that scenario. The 4th film could be the build up to that moment, to the proposal and everything. And there you go. You can end it with a proposal and then maybe flash forward to a wedding. I mean, makes sense in my opinion. And then that's how you could bookend things. Or you could do the same thing here, to where, you're building up to that moment because, if you go one way, Nick wants to do it and finally does it. You can do it like that. She accepts and then flash forward, boom, they're married. Or you could just make it a surprise. Like I say at the end, nobody sees it coming, boom. You add that to the scenario, and not only does she accept, but again, you flash forward to a marriage, and that's how you bookend the series, or bookend the franchise, I should say. So in my opinion, there's many ways they can go with it. But I feel that adding birds to the equation, and of course you're going to have lovebirds added into it. It makes a lot of sense. To go that direction. And again, to me, it's more along the lines that the reason we're not just getting it flat out acknowledged and said by the characters to each other and all that, despite people like Cellplex putting in the thumbnail saying kiss already and all that, is because it's a step-by-step process. And if we're getting a 3rd film, which it looks like we are, thanks to of all places China, no offense when I say that, but surprisingly thanks to of all places China, and again I say that with all due respect, no offense. Basically, if we're just going to have a trilogy, to me, it would make sense not only for it to not only for that to be the final step, if you will, in making it happen and official, but again, doing it in a various way of either having Nick kind of be like he's going to propose and all that, but he's waiting for the right moment to do so, or surprise, leaving the proposal for a surprise, reveal at the end when nobody sees it coming, after the confirmation of, hey, they do love each other beyond partners, to me, would be a good bookend to it, to this trilogy, depending if it is a trilogy, because you could build upon this, as Cellplex said, for years to come, because there's so many other animals out there. But we'll have to just see. We'll have to see what they have in store for the 3rd film and everything. But obviously, even through their own admission during the 1st film, when they were doing interviews and promos for it, even the people behind those films are like, yeah, it's no big deal and everything. It'd be nice. Animals, characters, a fiction and all that. They fall in love. It happens. So obviously they are planning for it, but what they're doing is they're taking a step-by-step process towards it. But that's about all I can really say on it right now. But to me, I do see a romance. I do see it becoming official, and I do see different scenarios of how it's going to happen and play out. When it comes to the 3rd film, if not beyond that. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys, if you haven't already in the live chat. And until next time, do me that solid favor. Like I said at the beginning, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube and to support me outside of YouTube as well. I do apologize for the numerous interruptions with the phone call and all that. Basically, you know how that is. As I told you, for those of you that have been following me for 17 years, you know the scenario, especially with today and tomorrow. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear your opinions and all that. If you haven't already in the live chat, let me know in the comments. And if you still want to donate, super thanks will be open. And that's all I can really say, guys. So until next time, I am out. God bless. Take care.